Before attempting to do any of these muzzle flashes, go back to our previous 2 tutorials on muzzle flashes. We did a very basic one, and then a few months later we did a more advanced one that shows tracking. So all these, I'm kind of assuming you guys have already gone over that. So if you haven't yet, go to that, watch that, and learn all that stuff. First things first, before we do anything else, and I hate that we have to preface our class with this, but there are 3 things we need to get out of the way. 1, I know that Haldane is holding down the slide release right there because the gun is not loaded. If it was loaded, Freddy would have been shot. Usually when we do this, we put a little piece of gaff tape on there, but it's a tutorial, so we gotta let it go. Number 2, the tip of the gun is orange. I know. We didn't bust out the spray paint and paint it because, once again, just a tutorial. 3, the wind hits Haldane's hair before the gun actually goes off. In the event that we were really trying to like do the effect of the gun going up and blowing, we'd do like 5-6 takes and get the timing right, but it's just a tutorial, guys. So, you know what? No need for that. First thing you gotta do before you start is slow down the footage. So we shot it at 60 frames a second, as you remember, but that's not gonna be quite slow enough, so we're gonna slow it down to 120. We use frame interpolation to do that. Basically use the Timewarp plugin. We actually already did a tutorial on this, and so you can go check it out in a link that'll be on the screen right now. And come back here when you finish with that. This tutorial is actually gonna have a lot of things we already covered since this is like the advanced muzzle flash one. Now after you slow down your footage, the first thing you're gonna wanna do is render that out and then bring that footage back in here. Now because the effect, since we're doing a slow motion muzzle flare, is highly stylized and you're gonna end up previewing that over and over again. If you leave that effect on there, you could just go on and do your effect on top of that. However, every single time you gotta redo that math and do it over and over again. So render that out in advance, it'll take 2 minutes and it'll save you a whole bunch of time in the long run. If you're ever doing an effect that has lots and lots of iterations, you're gonna wanna render layers out ahead of time. Don't worry about your quality, it'll be okay. It'll stay up there. Plus, we're just going to the internet with this, guys. Once you got your slow motion footage all slowed down and ready to go, time to build the effect on top of that. The main element in a slow motion muzzle flare is of course, the muzzle flare. And this is challenging because there isn't really like any resources that have slow motion muzzle flares that have been captured for real for you. First impulse, maybe to go to the 3D program and try to do a CG one. That's very difficult. Fortunately, our good friend Andrew Kramer has inadvertently already made slow motion muzzle flares with us, though he doesn't know it until this very moment. You go to the charges and the Action Essentials 2-pack and go through them. When I see them, I see slow motion muzzle flares just waiting to happen. Now most of them won't work because they have little sparks in it, but if you look through, I found that number 27 works perfectly for the angle we're trying to do. So we're gonna use number 27 for a frontal one, and we're gonna use number 1 for a side one. Nobody really has a clean perspective on what slow motion is, and so you can be a little stylized with it and choose your frames, and people won't be able to detect it since you never actually have any point of reference in your life of seeing something in slow motion. So we put in number 27, play with the frames so we get it how we want it to, so it looks about right. Now, you figure a muzzle flash normally is 1 frame long, and so in this case we have about 8 frames where the slide slides back, and so your muzzle flash should be pretty much completed by the time that slide goes all the way back and then when it starts to come all the way forward. After I initially layered in the muzzle flash, the edges on it are still a little harsh, so what I do is make duplicates of it. I actually made 3 layers here. The first one I blurred by 60 and the second one I blurred by 120. So it gives you basically more of a fall off on the edge so you get it blooming more correctly. The second layer, we have our slow motion muzzle flash. We layer in that, we bloom that as we did in that other tutorial. And then the second layer is smoke. Now smoke needs to be slowed down. So basically I took our usual smoker from the NCC Cinema smoker pack and slowed it down so it's about 50% of the normal speed. Now, and since you don't have any frame of reference for what slow motion actually looks like, you can actually mix and match different speeds. So just because one thing is 1/8 speed doesn't mean that everything has to be 1/8 speed as well. It's all done by eye, and things can actually move a little faster than they normally would or slower, and it pretty much all blends in assuming it's at a certain level of slow motion. You can't tell the difference. And then the third thing is illumination. Now we went over this in the tutorial, however, when you're doing a slow motion muzzle flash, everything has to be done with a little more precision and detail. Since people have a longer time to look at it, they'll be able to detect little differences. So rather than doing just 1 layer illuminating Haldane here, I did actually 2 layers. One that's just her hands and gun, and one that's the hands and gun and the whole body. So her hands are actually getting illuminated twice as much as the rest of her body. Now we already did a tutorial on how to do shells. This is identical to that process, except you, of course, just do it a little slower. Now you don't have to be super slow, just do it to eye and make it so it looks about right. Since you're taking a closer look into detail, I like to make my color correction have a little animation to it as well. As it gets slower, basically it gets a little more punchy and contrasty, so you see, and the vignette comes a little more, so it kind of focuses in as it goes, so the entire scene kind of breathes with it. After that, we've got our final effect.